It is a Tuesday morning. Somewhere in the industrial heartland, a plant supervisor named Garrett Okafor is standing at a metal workbench with a clipboard in one hand and a coffee going cold in the other. His facility runs 3 shifts. It does not sleep, and one of the hydraulic actuators on line 4 has started making a sound that Garrett describes to his crew as the sound money makes when it leaves your bank account. He needs a replacement part. He needs a specification sheet, a price, a lead time, and a delivery window before his operations manager walks through the door at noon and starts asking questions that Garrett does not want to answer. So Garrett does what people do. He sends an email. It is a detailed email, thoughtful even. Model number, serial tag, installation date, a precise description of the fault. He has done this before. He knows the drill. He sends it, sets his coffee down, and he waits for the one email back that tells him everything he needs. Instead, what arrives in his inbox 11 minutes later is this: "Thank you for your email. I am researching your question." Garrett stares at it. He reads it again. He checks the sender. Yes, it is from us. Yes, it is a real human being. No, there is no additional information, no estimated time frame, no acknowledgement of what he actually asked. 20 minutes later, another email arrives from the same address. "Thank you for your patience. I am still waiting on confirmation from our parts team." Then a third email, 40 minutes after that, informing him that inventory data is being called. Then a fourth, letting him know that engineering has been contacted. By the time the actual answer arrives, Garrett has received 5 separate emails from our customer support department. His inbox looks like a ticker tape parade, and his operations manager has already walked through the door. And somewhere in our open plan office, I am sitting at a desk, watching the complaint roll in, quietly thinking to myself, "You asked for this, Marcus. Every single bite of it." My name is not important. What is important is that I had been doing customer support for a company that sold specialized industrial equipment for close to 3 years by the time Marcus Hale arrived, and I was good at it. Not Employee of the Month poster on the break room wall good. I mean actually, functionally, operationally good. The kind of good that does not generate fanfare because nothing breaks. The kind of good that is only noticed in its absence. The company moved hydraulic components, pneumatic control systems, custom spec fittings, and a range of parts that kept factories, processing plants, and heavy equipment fleets operational. Our clients were not browsing from a couch. They were plant managers, procurement officers, site engineers, people on floors in hard hats operating under deadlines. When they emailed us, they needed precise information because the wrong answer in our business did not mean an inconvenient return shipment. It meant downtime. It meant line shutdowns. In some cases, it meant safety reviews and incident reports. Our team understood this. There were 5 of us on the support side, colleagues I will name properly because they earned it. There was Diane Reyes, who had been with the company longer than anyone and knew the parts catalog the way other people know their own street. There was Kwame Asante, who had come up through the warehouse before moving to support and could read a spec sheet faster than most people could Google the terminology. There was Fiona Castellano, who handled the logistics side and had a relationship with our 3 main suppliers that was frankly worth more to the company than her entire salary. And there was me. We operated on a principle that nobody had ever officially written down because it did not need to be. You respond when you have something to say. A customer asking about a replacement part for a filtration unit does not benefit from hearing that you received their email. They benefit from hearing whether the part is in stock, what it costs, and when it ships. Everything else is noise. So that is what we did. We took the time to get the right information. We checked inventory. We called suppliers when lead times were murky. We walked down to engineering when the technical questions got into edge cases. We sent one email that answered the question. Average response times were somewhere between 45 minutes and 2 hours, depending on complexity. Customer satisfaction scores were consistently above 85%. Complaint volume was low. The sales team liked us because when a customer asked a pre-purchase question, they got an answer that did not send them to a competitor. Then, the company hired Marcus Hale. Marcus came in with a title that had the word operations in it and a mandate from senior leadership to tighten up efficiency metrics across the support division. I'll give him this much. He arrived with energy. He arrived with slides. The first week, he held a team meeting in the small glass-walled conference room that overlooked the main floor, and he talked at us for 40 minutes about customer experience frameworks and response velocity, and something he called the first contact impression window, which, as far as I could understand, was a term he had recently coined himself. He was not a bad person, exactly. He was something more specifically frustrating than that. He was a person who had learned the vocabulary of performance optimization without learning the underlying work it described. He knew what metrics looked like. He did not know what the metrics were measuring. The meeting where everything changed was a Thursday. Marcus had spent the previous week pulling reports, and he came in with a specific grievance: our average email response time. He put it on the screen. He circled it. He said the number as though it were a moral failing. "This is not acceptable in a competitive landscape," he said. "Customers have options. If they send us an email and they don't hear back in 2 hours, they're already looking at someone else's website." Diane raised her hand. "Some of these questions require us to check with engineering or contact the supplier directly. We can't give a useful answer in 15 minutes. Marcus nodded, like he had expected this objection and was prepared to dismiss it. "I hear you, but here's the thing, Diane. The customer doesn't need the answer in 15 minutes. They need to know we're on it. Responsiveness communicates professionalism. We need every email answered within 15 minutes, no exceptions." There was a brief, loaded silence. Kwame tried next. "When you say answered, do you mean with actual information or just a reply?" "A reply," said Marcus. "A response. Something that says we received your message and we're working on it." Kwame looked at me. I looked at Fiona. Fiona looked at the ceiling. I asked the question that needed to be asked. "So if a customer emails us at 9 a.m. asking for a technical specification that requires engineering input, we send them an acknowledgement at 9:11 and then the real answer at 11:30? "Exactly," said Marcus. "And that's considered a 15-minute response time?" "That's the standard I'm setting, yes. Even if that's worse for the customer than one email at 11:30 with everything they need?" Marcus leaned back. His expression shifted just slightly, the way expressions do when someone decides they are not going to keep engaging with a reasonable counter-argument. "The policy is 15 minutes. I need everyone on board." I nodded slowly. I was on board. What Marcus did not understand, and what I had not yet fully formulated, was that his policy did not just change how we worked, it changed the nature of what our emails were. And in a business where our customers were running industrial operations, where their inboxes were managed by people with 40 other things demanding attention, flooding them with incremental non-answers was not going to read as responsiveness. It was going to read as something else entirely, something that within a few weeks was going to make its way up the chain in a form that Marcus was absolutely not prepared for. But we will get there. The new system took exactly one morning to reveal its full absurdity. By 10 a.m. on the first day of the policy, I had sent 14 emails to 8 different customers. Under the old system, I would have sent 4. The additional 10 emails contained no information. They contained variations of the same 4 sentences. "Thank you for your email. I am looking into this for you. I will be in touch shortly. Thank you for your patience." At 10:40, Garrett O'Coffer, the plant supervisor, sent his first email about the hydraulic actuator part. 11 minutes later, in strict compliance with the new policy, he received my acknowledgement. At 11:20, when I had actually spoken to our parts team and confirmed availability, he received the real answer: 2 emails for what had previously been 1. By the end of that first week, I had developed a rhythm. The moment an email hit my inbox, I opened a draft, pasted the appropriate acknowledgement template, adjusted the opening lines slightly so it did not read as completely robotic, and sent it. Then I did the actual work. When the actual work was done, I sent the real answer. Sometimes the real answer required a follow-up from engineering that came in a different email thread, so I forwarded that separately, with a short note of context. Sometimes inventory updated between my initial check and the customer's reply, so I sent a correction. Sometimes shipping estimates changed. By week 2, some of our longer request chains were running to 5 separate emails. Kwame came over to my desk on a Wednesday afternoon with a look on his face that was equal parts amused and haunted. Radislav Petrenko just replied to his 5th email from me, he said. Kwame named his customers well. Radislav was a procurement lead for a steel processing facility who historically sent very organized, numbered emails with specific questions and expected specific numbered replies. He replied saying, and I'm quoting here, "Can someone please just answer the question in a single message? I have 30 other vendors and none of them communicate like this." "Did you forward it to Marcus?" I asked. "I CC'd him on the response," Kwame said. "And?" He replied, "Good job staying within the 15-minute window," and suggested I add a line about our commitment to customer service. Diane had not stopped shaking her head since the policy launched. She was professional about it, she complied, but she had started keeping a document, a running log of customer feedback, complaints, and confusion that was growing in length at an alarming rate. Not because she was planning anything, just because Diane was Diane, and she documented things the way some people breathe. Fiona was having the most acute version of the problem. Her supplier relationships, carefully cultivated over years, operated on a rhythm of consolidated communication. A supplier contact named Bernadette, who handled our primary parts ordering, called Fiona directly during the 3rd week. "What is happening over there?" Bernadette asked. "I'm getting forwarded emails from your customers with 4 messages in a chain asking the same question. One of them wanted to know if I was the person they were supposed to be talking to." Fiona gave Bernadette the diplomatic version. Bernadette gave Fiona the candid version, which was that if our customers started calling suppliers directly because our email communication was confusing them, that was going to create a very different kind of problem for everyone. The sales department surfaced their complaints at around the 4-week mark. I know this because Cormac Whelan, one of the senior sales reps, appeared at my desk with his laptop open and an expression that communicated specifically that he would like this to stop. Cormac was not the type to come to support with complaints. He resolved things himself, usually. The fact that he was standing at my desk meant the situation had progressed past what he could resolve himself. I had a prospect, a mid-size manufacturing outfit I've been working for 3 months, ask me yesterday why our support team sends 5 emails to say one thing. He turned his laptop around. There was a forwarded chain in his inbox, 8 messages long, covering a single question about compatibility between 2 component types. The customer's most recent reply in the chain read, "Is this normal for your company? We're comparing you against 2 other vendors, and this is a concern." I looked at the chain. Every single message from our end had gone out within the 15-minute window, perfectly compliant. "I'm following the new policy," I said. "Marcus set a 15-minute response requirement. Every email gets a reply within 15 minutes. Cormac stared at me for a moment. "Who approved that?" "Marcus did, in a team meeting. We raised concerns. He said no exceptions." Cormac closed his laptop slowly. "How long has this been going on?" 4 weeks. He left my desk without another word. I watched him walk toward the section of the building where Marcus's office sat. Here is the thing about working in a small company. There is very little insulation between cause and effect. In a large corporation, a bad policy can absorb consequences for months before they concentrate enough to become visible to anyone who can do something about them. In a small company, the consequences of a bad customer support policy surface on the sales floor within a month. And on the sales floor, unlike in a performance report, the consequences have names and contract values attached to them. What Cormac Whelan carried into that conversation with Marcus was not an abstract concern about email volume. It was a prospect 3 months into a sales cycle who is now comparing us unfavorably to 2 competitors. That is not a number on a slide. That is a number on a revenue forecast. And that, I knew, was the kind of number that changes meetings. The review meeting arrived on a Friday. Marcus called it. The entire support team, plus Cormac, representing sales, and a senior operations director named Philippa Osei, who I had spoken to exactly twice before in my time at the company. Philippa was the kind of presence who did not say a lot in meetings, but whose silence functioned as a form of pressure. She had a notepad. She used it. When Philippa took notes, people in the room tended to choose their words more carefully. Marcus opened the meeting by announcing that he had been reviewing customer feedback and internal email metrics, and that there were some concerning trends he wanted to address. He put the volume numbers on the screen. Email volume from our team had increased by over 60% in the past 4 weeks. I want to understand what's driving this, he said, because on the surface, this looks like a significant workload problem. Diane's log was open on her laptop. Kwame had his email client visible. Fiona had printed 3 pages of supplier correspondence. I had nothing visible because I did not need anything visible. I had the original policy email. Marcus looked at me. I think he sensed something, the way you sense a shift in barometric pressure before a storm. Can you walk me through what's changed in your workflow? Sure, I said. We implemented the 15-minute response policy you announced at our team meeting 5 weeks ago. Every customer email now receives a reply within 15 minutes, as required. Right, Marcus said, but why is volume up 60%? Because many customer inquiries require research before we can give a complete answer, I said. So the customer receives an acknowledgement within 15 minutes, and then subsequent emails as information becomes available. Some requests generate 4 or 5 emails where previously there would have been 1. The room was quiet, in a specific way. Philippa looked up from her notepad. You're sending incomplete responses as an interim step, Marcus said. The phrasing was interesting. He had shifted from calling them replies to calling them incomplete responses. Subtle. I'm sending responses within 15 minutes, as instructed. I can pull the policy email if that would be helpful. I have the statistics on customer complaints here, Diane said, and opened her document without waiting to be asked. She turned her laptop toward the center of the table. The document was 12 pages long. Names, dates, complaint summaries, forwarded feedback from sales. Some of it was direct customer quotes. Some of it was Cormac's forwarded emails. The Radoslav Petrenko thread was in there, 8 messages long. These are all from the last 4 weeks, said Diane. Most of them reference confusion about receiving multiple emails for a single request. Marcus looked at the document. He did not reach for it. Kwame spoke. I had a prospect explicitly on a recorded call that they be handled by someone who could give them one complete answer. They mentioned receiving 7 emails about a single parts inquiry. They are currently in a decision period, and I do not know which way they are leaning. He paused. 7 emails. Philippa made a note. Marcus began to reframe. I think what we're seeing here is an implementation issue. The intent of the policy was not to fragment communication. The intent was to ensure customers feel acknowledged quickly. There's clearly been a misapplication. I want to be precise about what happened in my internal experience at this moment, because it is important. There was no anger. There was something quieter than anger, more like the specific satisfaction of watching a thing resolve the way physics requires it to. Water flows downhill. Misapplied policies generate their natural consequences. I had not sabotaged anything. I had not complained or slow-walked or briefed anyone against Marcus. I had followed every instruction, precisely, completely, and documented as I went. I want to make sure I understand, I said. The policy as written required a response within 15 minutes with no exceptions. Are you saying the policy has changed? I'm saying we need to use professional judgment, Marcus said. There it was. Philippa looked up again. Professional judgment, Kwame said, not quite repeating it, more like setting it down on the table where everyone could see it. Yes, Marcus said. When a question requires research, we should consolidate the response and deliver it when it's complete. If that takes longer than 15 minutes, that's acceptable, provided the answer is thorough. Fiona spoke for the first time in the meeting, very calm. So the standard is a thorough answer, not a 15-minute window. Correct. That's what we were doing before the policy was introduced, she said. The silence that followed lasted approximately 4 seconds. In a meeting, 4 seconds of silence is a geological era. Philippa closed her notepad. The meeting ended shortly after. No formal announcement, no memo. 2 days later, a short email arrived from Marcus addressed to the support team, noting that email response standards were being updated to prioritize comprehensive customer communication and that professional judgment should guide timing. The 15-minute rule was not mentioned by name. Policies that fail tend not to announce their own failure. They simply dissolve. The effect was immediate and measurable. Within the first week after the change, complaint volume dropped back to its previous level. Cormac's prospect, Garrett Okafor's facility, and a cluster of other clients who had been generating confused reply chains all returned to their normal single email patterns. Radoslav Petrenko sent us an email about a new procurement requirement that was 11 lines long, precisely numbered, and which Kwame answered in one response 40 minutes later. Customer satisfaction scores, which had dipped by 11 points over the course of the policy, recovered. Not immediately, not in a single data point, but steadily, over the following 3 weeks, back to where they had been. My personal response time metrics, on paper, got worse. Where the 15-minute policy had briefly made my numbers look exceptional, I returned to the previous standard, thoughtful, complete, occasionally 45 minutes. When Philippa passed through our section a few weeks later and paused at my desk, she looked at my screen briefly, asked one question about the complaint document Diane had compiled, and then said, "Good documentation habit," before moving on. Marcus remained in his role. He did not change overnight. He was not the villain in a morality play, and I am not interested in pretending otherwise. He was a person operating from a framework that valued metrics over outcomes, and who had to watch in real time as the thing he measured destroyed the thing he was trying to improve. Whether that landed as a lesson, I cannot say with certainty. What I can say is that he never set another time to response standard. There is a difference between measuring performance and measuring the outputs that performance creates. Marcus measured response time. Response time is a real number. It is precise. It is trackable. It looks good in a report. What it does not measure is whether the customer got what they needed, whether the interaction resolved their problem, whether they came back. Those things are harder to quantify. They are slower to appear in data. They require a kind of judgment that cannot be expressed in a 15-minute threshold. Every workplace has a version of this tension, the metric that replaces the outcome it was designed to track, the standard that, applied without judgment, becomes its own kind of failure. And the people closest to the actual work, the ones who know that a Garrett Okafor needs one detailed email, not 5 fragments of one, those people are often the least consulted when the policies get written. What I did was simple. I did not argue past the point of argument. I did not quietly ignore the policy and hope no one noticed. I followed it completely and let the results make the case that words had failed to make. Every automated acknowledgement, every fragmented reply chain, every confused customer forwarding a 7-email thread to their sales contact was the policy speaking in its native language. The rule was 15 minutes. No exceptions. I had no exceptions. The rule had consequences. It turned out the consequences were the argument. If you have ever been told to follow a procedure that you knew would not work, and you raised the concern and were overruled, and you then had to decide what to do next, then you already understand every decision I made in this story. You do not have to sabotage anything. You do not have to fight. Sometimes the most effective thing you can do is comply, completely, carefully, and document as you go. The receipts, as it turns out, do all the talking.